One wrong move, and the most loyal warrior would die. A simple man fought with King David for decades, risking everything for the king that he trusted with his life. But while Uriah was fighting on the battlefield, the king he served, that he thought was his best friend, his brother, even his soul, was the man that impregnated Uriah's own wife, married her, and killed him in the end. In the army of Israel served a man named Uriah, a mighty warrior, one of the bravest fighters under King David, a soldier known for his discipline and his devotion to the men beside him. Uriah had a wife in Jerusalem named Bathsheba. Bathsheba would always greet him with a smile.
I made all of this for you, my love.
It looks incredible, my love.
Both of them were very faithful and happy, never imagining that this pure woman would one day commit a sin with King David so great that would eventually lead to Uriah's death. Israel's army marched out under the command of Joab, David's general, and set out against the Ammonites, a fierce nation to the east that had challenged Israel and now stood against them in battle. The army surrounded the Ammonite city of Rabbah, a stronghold with high walls and armed men guarding every gate. Uriah marched with them, taking his place at the front line, ready to fight. David, the king of Israel, did not go out to war that year. He stayed behind in his palace in Jerusalem. One evening, David rose from his bed and walked out onto the roof of his palace. From there, he looked down and saw a woman bathing with clothes on. She was very beautiful. David sent someone to find out who she was. The answer came back. This was Bathsheba, wife of Uriah. David's messengers led Bathsheba through the streets of Jerusalem and into the royal palace. "The king will see you now," one of the servants said quietly. Bathsheba took a slow breath before stepping inside. The servants left the room right after. The heavy doors closed behind her, leaving only the king and herself in the room. That night, David laid with Bathsheba. When it was over, she left the palace in silence and returned to her home, believing the evening was behind her. Days turned into weeks. Then, one morning, Bathsheba realized something was different. She sent a message to David containing only 3 words: "I am pregnant." At the siege of Rabbah, the army pressed against the walls day after day. Joab positioned his men in ranks around the city, watching for any weakness in its defenses. Uriah stood among the front ranks, his shield in hand, watching the walls with the rest of his company, waiting for the order to advance. Arrows came down from the towers from time to time, and the soldiers ducked behind their shields and pressed forward when they could, retreating when the fire from above grew too heavy. The siege dragged on, and the men grew used to sleeping in the open fields around the city, eating what rations came to them, keeping watch through the night in shifts, so the camp would never be caught unprepared. It was in the middle of this siege that a rider came from Jerusalem carrying a message from King David. He found Joab and delivered it. David wanted Uriah sent back to the capital at once. Joab called Uriah away from his company and told him the king had summoned him. Uriah handed his shield to another soldier, gathered what he needed for the road, and set out toward Jerusalem, leaving the siege lines behind him. Passing through small villages where farmers watched the lone soldier pass, until at last the walls of Jerusalem rose ahead of him. He came to the gates, was recognized by the guards, and made his way up through the city streets to the palace. He was brought before David. The king asked him how the war was going, how Joab was faring, how the men were holding up under the siege.
The fighting continues. There have been losses, and the walls of Rabbah still stand.
Then David said to him,
"Go down to your house and rest."
David wanted Uriah to return home and spend the night with his wife, hoping everyone would believe the child Bathsheba was carrying belonged to Uriah instead of him. Uriah left the palace. A gift from the king was sent out after him, but Uriah did not go down to his house. Instead, he lay down at the entrance of the palace among the king's own servants, using his cloak as a blanket on the stone ground. In the morning, David was told, Uriah did not go to his house.
You have just come from a long journey. Why didn't you go home? The Ark of the Covenant and the armies of Israel and Judah are camped out in open fields right now, sleeping on the ground. My commander Joab and my brothers in arms have no roof over their heads tonight. How could I go home, eat, drink, and lie with my wife while they suffer out there? As surely as you live and as your soul lives, I will not do such a thing. Stay here one more day. Tomorrow I will send you back to the war. As you wish, my lord.
That evening, David invited him to sit and eat at his own table and poured him wine until Uriah was drunk. Hoping this would finally send him home, Uriah did not go to his house. He went out once more and lay down among the servants at the palace entrance, just as he had the night before. The next morning, David called for parchment and wrote a letter with his own hand, sealing it and giving it to Uriah to carry back to Joab. Inside that letter, David had written an order. Put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest, then pull the rest of the men back from him, so that he will be struck down and die. Uriah took the sealed letter, thanked the king for his hospitality, and set out on the road back toward Rabbah, carrying in his own hands the command for his own death. He walked the long road east once more, through the same villages, across the same open country, until the siege camp came into view, and he made his way to Joab's tent to deliver the letter. Joab broke the seal and read the king's command. He said nothing of it to Uriah, but he studied the defenses of the city and found the place where the Ammonite fighters were strongest. Joab called his officers together and said,
Send Uriah to that section of the wall. When the fighting grows fierce, pull the rest of the men back from him.
The men looked at Joab and said,
But sir, how could we do this? Uriah doesn't stand a chance.
Joab had no other plan and said, It must be done. The next assault began. Uriah advanced with a small company toward the strong point in the wall. The men of the city, seeing the attack, threw open a gate and rushed out to meet them, striking at the exposed soldiers with spears and swords. As the fighting grew heavier near that section of the wall, the rest of Joab's men withdrew as ordered. Uriah fought where he stood, but the men of the city overwhelmed that position. Uriah fell there along with several other servants of David.
Take this report to the king. Yes, commander.
Joab knew many soldiers had died during the attack, and he expected King David to ask why the battle had gone so badly. So he told the messenger that if David questioned what had happened, he should end with one important sentence. Your servant Uriah is dead also. The messenger set out from the camp and traveled the road to Jerusalem until he reached the city gates. He was brought before David and gave his account. The army had attacked. The men of the city had come out into the open field against them. The fighting had pushed back to the entrance of the gate, and archers on the wall had struck down several of the king's servants. Then the messenger added,
Your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. Tell Joab, do not let this trouble you. Strengthen your attack against the city and destroy it.
The siege continued at Rabbah, and in time Joab and his men broke through the city's defenses and captured it. But back in Jerusalem, word reached Bathsheba that her husband had fallen in battle. As it is written in 2 Samuel 11:26, when Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. When the days of mourning were finished, David sent for her and brought her into his own house, and she became his wife. In time, she bore him a son. But what David had done was evil in the eyes of the Lord. The Lord sent the prophet Nathan to the king. Nathan came before David and said,
There were 2 men in a certain town, one rich and one poor.
The rich man owned very large flocks of sheep and herds of cattle. The poor man had nothing at all except one small ewe lamb, which he had bought and raised himself. It grew up together with him and his children. It ate from his own plate, drank from his own cup, and slept in his arms like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to visit the rich man, but instead of taking a sheep from his own enormous flock to prepare a meal for his guest, the rich man seized the poor man's only lamb and served it to the traveler instead. David's anger burned hot against the man in the story, and he said to Nathan,
As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this deserves to die. He must repay for that lamb 4 times over, because he showed no pity at all.
Nathan looked at the king and said,
You are that man.
This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says to you. I anointed you king over Israel.
I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave you your master's house and his wives. I gave you the house of Israel and Judah. Why then have you despised the word of the Lord to do what is evil in his sight? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and you took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of the sons of Ammon. I have sinned against the Lord. The Lord has taken away your sin. You will not die for this. Because you have shown contempt for the Lord by this deed, the son born to you will die.
Not long after, the child that Bathsheba had borne to David grew sick. David pleaded with God for the child, fasting and lying on the ground through the night. But on the 7th day, the child died.